Hi, I have a message today called The Dawning. So the first idea is ego suggests, I'll do the short version too first. Okay. Ego suggests paranoid outcomes to you. And then I was told to look up the etymology of paranoid. So thanks to Etymonline. Mental disorder characterized by systematized delusions of more or less definite scope. From Greek paranoia, mental derangement, madness. From paranoos, mentally ill, insane. From para, beside, beyond. And noos, mind. Okay. Ego suggests damaging and harmful outcomes to you. When ego is suggesting an outcome to you, it is saying, you can see this if you want to. An alternative to ego suggestion is always the dawning. When you are focusing on war, you would rather focus upon war than on the dawning. When you are focusing upon sickness, you would rather focus upon sickness than on the dawning. Okay, so back to the beginning. Ego suggests paranoid outcomes to you. And going back over etymology of paranoid from Etymonline. Mental disorder characterized by systematized delusions of more or less definite scope. Doesn't that sound like what we have going on here? Doesn't that sound like a day or a human lifetime? Systematized delusions. From Greek paranoia, mental derangement, madness. From paranoos, mentally ill, insane. From para, beside, beyond, and nous, mind. Well, if we seem to be outside our right mind, we share one right mind, but we seem to have many, many, many wrong minds in conflict with each other. And if we seem to be beside our actual shared, sane, loving mind, then yeah, we're paranoid. We're beside our actual mind. We've tried to step outside it, and we can step back into it. So this is connected to the idea of the dawning. And ego suggests paranoid outcomes to us, delusional outcomes, either pleasurable or painful. It doesn't matter which, as long as we are believing that the contents of the outcomes are real and the contents of the outcomes cause a feeling that we want. We're going after happiness, peace, joy, and we think the contents of an outcome will satisfy us. But also, can you see how magnetized we are to thinking about unpleasant outcomes? And there's our clue that pleasure and pain are the same thing. It doesn't matter if we're actively fantasizing about pleasurable outcomes or painful outcomes. It's all part of the same delusion. It's all part of the same paranoia, and it's ultimately all pain. Pleasure and pain are the same thing. Pleasure is like fake happiness. So none of us is beyond seeking pleasure and pain, although we kind of ignore the fact that we seek pain. None of us is beyond it because we're all here together, but we're all kind of waking up out of our fog and learning together how to stop actively seeking both pleasurable and painful outcomes. If we focus on the painful more, and there are different spiritual traditions, and in some spiritual traditions you try to just eradicate seeking pleasure, but it doesn't work very well because you lose the whole, it works. Ultimately it works. Any path back to the divine works, but seeking a remembrance of who you are through everyone you call other seems to be the quicker path than just isolating oneself and trying to just make yourself never seek pleasure and keep going in and trying to touch the divine. That path works. All the paths work. But this path of seeing the light in all others, active and alive, within or behind or shining down upon all others, gives us access to this shared mind. And in the shared mind, there is no pleasure seeking and there is no pain seeking. And from the perspective of this shared mind, you don't see, you don't come into some sort of elevation that you consider to be only yours. And then there are all these other ones around you who have not come into that elevation. you arise into the elevation, or you allow the light to dawn upon you all together as one. I don't even know some of what I'm talking about, so this is definitely not just for the personality, but I'm understanding and seeing it as it's coming through. That's why we would seek the light through a relationship, so we don't get it lopsided. But keeping in mind that whenever I don't feel good, ego has led me toward paranoia. That's handy. I don't want to be paranoid. So ego suggests paranoid outcomes to you, paranoid beside your actual mind. You're out of your actual mind. And when we seek our return home through relationship, we're going back to the mind we all share, and we're acknowledging that divinity in everyone. And more we remember it before we focus upon a positive or a negative thought. Ego might give us this paranoia, this delusion. We want to stop being delusional. We want to relax into that calm, clear-mindedness that's available to everyone. And just to know quietly this clear-mindedness is available to everyone, and therefore to share it, to see it as their nature. And then we'll stop having delusions about them. We want to stop having delusions about everybody, and dreams and hallucinations. We want to stop all that. So we learn to stop taking the drug of ego thought, because that's what causes these bad trips, these hallucinations. We stop taking the drug of ego thought. And as we learn to stop taking it, we notice like we're imbibing throughout the day. We're sipping and we're gulping and we're ingesting it pretty hard for periods of time. We think it's helpful and we get excited about it and we like it. We find it pleasurable. And, we notice all these ways we're still attached, addicted to this drug. But gently, increment by increment, we learn to set it aside and turn towards something real. Turn toward the dawning. That's the dawning in our shared mind. That's what uplifts all of us together. We learn more and more to go quiet and to just turn toward the dawning and allow the dawning, the return of sanity to everyone, and the return of everyone to our shared mind. Everyone, no exceptions. We learn how to focus upon that. Okay. Ego suggests damaging and harmful outcomes to you, and you can just watch your mind today to see if a thought comes in that's about a damaging or harmful outcome to you, or a damaging or harmful outcome coming to someone else. And if it does, I'm just thinking of how we are with small children, how we're always seeing these outcomes and always trying to avoid them. And I'm not saying you force yourself to stop acting on your fear, because that doesn't work. If you force yourself to stop acting and yet you are still fearful, you're very likely to still experience the outcome. So it's not like we force the action in one direction or another. The action takes care of itself. When I stop believing that a harmful outcome is likely and coming, I don't act to prevent it, because I'm resting in the awareness that we're loved and cared for, and that harmful and damaging outcomes are unnecessary. But meanwhile, I do catch my mind throughout the day. I do catch myself thinking about harmful or damaging outcomes to what I would call myself. And in those moments, I'm seeing myself as a body, not as spirit. Or harmful and damaging outcomes to you or others. Then I'm not seeing you guys as spirit, I'm seeing you as bodies, and I am preferring the sight. Isn't that interesting? When we're thinking about these things, we're preferring the sight of harmful and damaging outcomes. And if you, can feel how crazy that is, then you learn to take a minute to stop. To stop and come out of the hyper focus on that harmful or damaging outcome, and to be guided by the mind we share, by the thoughts that come to us from spirit, not from ego. When we don't feel good, we are ingesting those ego thoughts. And so we know, oh, my thinking, it's time. It's time to set the thought down. It's time to be quiet. It's time to focus inward. I still use a thought from the daily lesson in A Course in Miracles. This is from a few days ago, but one of the lessons is, forgiveness lets me know that minds are joined. So if you focus on how all our minds are joined and they're not separate and they're not in conflict, then a thought from our shared mind, a loving thought from our shared mind can come to you, and you stay in that shared mind, loving shared mind setting, and that can guide you through every experience you're having through your day. Okay. When ego is suggesting an outcome to you, it is saying, you can see this if you want to. And we learn to shake ourselves out of our stupor and realize, why on earth would I plan this? Why on earth would I plan to see this? Because I'm addicted to strife. Ego doesn't make that part obvious to us. A drug is not the thing that tells you you're addicted to it. And the drug just presents itself as pleasurable or as an escape from pain. So we focus upon things to escape from other more painful things. And if I'm just pausing to receive here. We focus on things to try to escape from other more painful things, but we learn by noticing how we feel and remembering that how we feel is caused by what we're thinking. So we learn consistently to acknowledge the thought we're having, and it is a thought we're having. It's not just, I am this body and I'm reacting to everything around me and my reactions are right. We know this is a mind thinking. There are thoughts coming to the mind. And the thoughts can only come from two places. The thoughts can come from insanity, from the paranoia of the ego trying to be outside our shared and loving mind, or they can come from spirit. They can come from our shared and loving mind. And we gradually learn to prefer the loving thought, which should be obvious, but it's not when we're addicted. And if we're experiencing time and space, we're addicted. We may be coming out of our illusion together, but I'm an addict amongst addicts. And how do I know? I'm experiencing time and space. That's how I know. So we cannot elevate ourselves, especially since we only share one loving mind. We cannot put ourselves below any other, and that includes Jesus, because we only share one loving mind with him and with everybody. Any separate mind that tries to set itself outside our shared mind and enjoy the conflict there, we're crazy. We're crazy together. If we're experiencing time and space where we chopped up all this perception, we're still crazy and we're coming out of it together. So the important part is the dawning. It's what we're going to inevitably experience together. And the dawning of awareness on our awareness is in our shared mind, but it's like we allow it all to dawn on us simultaneously. And that comes faster when we take responsibility for what seems to be happening in our separate mind, and we take responsibility for how we feel, and we really look at our thinking, knowing thinking's the cause of everything we feel, thinking's the cause of everything we experience, thinking's the cause of everything we perceive. Thinking's important. And yes, there is a no thought state, and that's what we can be led to, but while we're still believing thoughts from ego, we really need to acknowledge that. And we need to acknowledge the feeling and not ignore it. We can't ignore our feelings and just say, there's this state of awareness and I'm going to go to it now. No, I have to stop and understand, here's the thought I believed. I'm intentionally setting this thought aside. I'm going to turn toward our shared mind, and I'm going to accept what comes to me from the shared mind. So when ego is suggesting an outcome to you, it is saying you can see this if you want to. And when I catch myself in the middle of a thought, I can ask myself, is this what I really want to see? I need to stop. I need to remember I'm affected only by my thoughts. I need to relax and to open up to what's here for all of us all the time. A very loving presence. That's our actual presence. This very loving presence that's here for us and everyone at all times, and that can greatly reassure us. If you're worried about anyone, you need to focus on the very loving presence that's there for them all the time, and it's here for you all the time. We learn to focus on this together. So that very loving presence is us. It's us and it's everyone. And we can learn to see it that way, and then nothing seems so threatening. We gradually, I'm looking for the image, how they want me to describe it. We gradually emerge out of the paranoia we've made for ourselves, this delusional state of mind. And so today is for our gradual emergence, gentle and loving, from this state of paranoia we've made for ourselves using thought. And that's all of us together, all together now. Okay. An alternative to ego suggestion is always the dawning. So when I notice that I'm disturbed, the dawning is here for me. And if I can just look toward the horizon, see the sun rising, see the light coming, I can put my attention there. The light is here, the light is coming, the sun is rising, and I can always set that ego thought aside for a minute. And so I feel like I should go back through the process. I notice I don't feel good in some way. I then follow the thread from that feeling. I've just identified to only one thought, I believe. All ego thoughts are the same thought, that we're separate. So you don't have to do this with a lot of them. You just need to stop when you don't feel good. And then you find a thread from that feeling to just one thought you believe. And then you hold that thought in your hand and you really give that thought your attention. You consider it. Okay, this is the thought I believe. And then you ask yourself, could I set it down next to me on the ground for just a second or a minute? I can take it back if I need it. Okay, I pause for a minute, so I'm remembering where I am. So you put that thought down for a minute, knowing you can pick it back up if you decide you want it later. And then you look toward the light of spirit. You look toward the horizon where there's this dawning. And this dawning is our shared, sane mind. It's waiting here for all of us. And it can give us thoughts. We can get our thoughts from spirit. We don't have to make them up. The ego doesn't have to make up positive thoughts to give us. We can just receive thoughts just as quickly as we received that ego thought from the little, it's kind of like a little device we made to send ego thought after ego thought after ego thought to us, always identifying ourselves and others as separate. Well, here's spirit, and spirit can send us thoughts too. You can help yourself focus on spirit by asking a question. This is from Byron Katie's The Work. Who would I be without this thought? And just sit and wait and be receptive. I like to use the lessons from A Course in Miracles. I think today it's, what is it? I am affected only by my thoughts. And then just wait in the openness. And that openness is a very beautiful place that you learn to revisit. And you don't even have to insist upon receiving a particular thought. You just take a little while, a little bite of time, perceived time, to rest, where you can see the dawning on the horizon, where you rest in this openness. And you learn that this place is always here for you, and it's always here for everyone. You the more time you spend here, the more you bring it as a gift to everyone, this place of openness. This place where ego thought is set aside and spirit thought is here for you. and then you continue on through your day. And you have opened the invitation for spirit thought to come to you and guide you through your day, to inspire you. And then whenever you need to, whenever you notice you started taking the addictive drug of ego thought again, which will be often, then you stop and you go back to this space. But it only really takes a few seconds, especially as you train yourself to, this is the most important thing I'm doing in my life, is allowing my thought to come from spirit instead of ego. Then you just keep going and going back to this space and resting there for a second or two, for a minute, and then continuing on. Okay, so where was I? An alternative to ego suggestion is always the dawning. The dawning is always here. And I'm just shown, I know there's going to be, gosh, what do you want me to say now? Okay, I know there's going to be a gradual dawning upon us all, that our mind is shared, and that we're loved, and that everyone's loving, and that no one has ever done anything wrong. Inevitably, this realization is going to come to us. Could there be a particular event where it seems this realization comes to us in a big way? Yes. And I do wonder if this dawning I'm being shown means this event is coming. But you don't really want to play with time. The more important thing is the openness to the dawning, and not saying, okay, this is just for me. I'm not going to judge what anybody else says about what some people call the event, because all things work together for good. All things. So this thing and all the other things, they're working together for good. I have to put my attention there. So the most important thing is that I just put my attention on the dawning. And an idea of, is an event going to happen? When is it going to happen? I feel the urgency and the expectation and the anxiety there. So then I go through this very thought process with that. Is it going to happen? Well, that's a stressful thought. So I set that down for a second. I just sit here with the dawning. There it is. It's on the horizon. I can see it as clear as day. Of course, the dawning is here. And then I remember I am affected only by my thoughts. So my job is to have my shit together. My job isn't to say there's a particular event and the event's going to happen on this day at this time. My job is to have my shit together, and that is clear. That is clear. And so that's what I can tell you. I just know I need to kind of stare at it and keep and focus, and I know it's getting easier to focus on it, and by increments. So I learned to focus on it. I think that's all there is there. Okay. When you are focusing on a war, you would rather focus upon war than on the dawning. When you are focusing upon sickness, you would rather focus upon sickness than on the dawning. So the dawning. But there are these two places to put my attention, and I get to choose where it is. You always choose where to put your attention. You are not helpless. You can't be helpless. It is an impossibility for you or anyone you could ever think of to be helpless. Impossible. Okay, so we're always controlling where our focus is. And when we focus upon spirit, we are allowing spirit to be the controller. And when we focus upon ego, crazy as it is, we are allowing ego to be the controller. That's crazy. Also, I do it every day. So it keeps us humble, right? But you can think of being humble or humility in another way. You could think of it as it's our quality. We're just all on the same level here. And the many are powerful together. But if I slice and dice just one of us, the just one of us may seem to have a lot of comparative power, but that's the power we're hallucinating. And we can pull ourselves away from the magnetism of hallucinating this power. And we can come back to the gentle presence. It doesn't have to magnetize you. It's present. Our shared power is always present. And when we kind of wipe the mud away by again and again setting aside ego thought to focus on spirit, then the gentle, extremely powerful presence of our one mind and spirit together becomes obvious. It's always been here. We've only covered it up with the mud of ego thought. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. When you are focusing on war, you would rather focus upon war than on the dawning. When you are focusing upon sickness, you would rather focus upon sickness than on the dawning. So the dawning's always here for us. And my experience with a symbol they give me is they hit it super hard during the whole length of the message, and then I may never refer to it that way ever again. It was temporary. And I like that because you could just crumple it up and throw it away. It's not the words or the image that are the important thing. It's the actual dawning that's the important thing. And we might be given different words and images if we need those to describe, to lead us through and out of our hallucination. So the important thing isn't like setting aside the dawning as a concept and then using ego thought to judge everything around that. The important thing is looking straight in front of you and seeing that sunrise and saying, oh my gosh, it's here. It's here. It's here. Maybe this is the event. And it just takes place very gradually over time. And it's not something that comes in one day. And, who knows? I don't know. I don't know anything about anything. But I do know the dawning's here. And it's just coming up. I see it. It's there. So enjoy your dawning, and thank you for the work you're doing to focus on what's real and to focus away from what is unreal, because that certainly helps me every day, and I appreciate that. So happy healing to you.